Okay, good morning. Good chat again with McDuff this morning, and a little bit of the background to this, and I'm going to go into Ukraine Gate a little bit more. And I just want to remind everybody that it's not enough to tell part of the story and say it wasn't Russia. I think everybody, hey, Joe from Scranton, not far from Sailorsburg, where our good friend Gulan caches weapons for DIA. It's not enough to tell, if you're trying to tell the Russiagate story and you're trying to say it's a hoax, it's not enough to say it's a hoax. What you have to do is say what actually happened. And the only reason I'm adding to what Dan Bongino has said and clarifying some of the things and disagreeing with a few of the things he said, because he's probably got the best book out about the Russiagate so far, is because I just want it out there. I want him to say it. I don't care about me saying it. I'm not trying to get subscribers or anything. I want him to say it. If you don't remember what I'm talking about, you may remember the president right above me tweeting out. So if Ukraine is the one who interfered in the election, where is the special counsel talking about that? That was in July of 2017. There you can see. Hello from Chicago, land of NGP van and land of the MIS department and land of Peter Smith trying to, in the Wrigley building, trying to give emails to Mike Flynn and his son, Junior. So welcome, Chicago. So yes, my voice is much better. Thank you. So the person next to me is Andrea Chalupa. And Chalupa, I've said, was a key CIA person that was working for John Brennan, working with a hit team, sort of like the hit team that would work for Fusion GPS. I think Fusion GPS only had 13 or 14 employees, something like that, not very many. And most of these were overseas students. And the Clinton Foundation was bringing these people in through a program called Worldwide Studies, basically giving them a graduate degree rinse while they're here in the United States, through a group of universities sending them back to wherever they came from, and then they could write a whole bunch of great things about the Clinton Foundation. So you're still confused about General Flynn. Well, I think everybody's confused about General Flynn. I think he's potentially compromised, but we'll get to that a little bit later. We'll get how Bill Barr, I believe, is going to indict Trump on obstruction. I'm not saying Trump's guilty of obstruction, but I do think they're going to indict him on basically saying go easy on Flynn, and James Comey is going to testify contemporaneous notes and so forth that said go easy on Flynn. But getting back to Ukraine Gate, you have to say what happened. If you don't say what actually happened, if you don't connect the dots to actually what happened, it really isn't that good of a book. Now, Dan Bongino did cover Chalupa. I got to give him credit. He even covered Leschenko, who was the person running all the investigators, quote unquote, in Ukraine. If you don't recall all the investigators, where have all the investigators gone? Where have all the Ukrainian investigators gone? Has Chalupa dropped them? You know, that's the question we're asking this morning, because here we have her. If you people don't remember this, but she has 68 people at the Library of Congress on May the 2nd, and she's saying, hey, I'm going to dump all this stuff about Paul Manafort. Remember, Paul Manafort's had 30 years of pay to play with people like Khashoggi and people like DynCorp, flying them around, Mujahideen around. The latest, I just saw that now Jamal Khashoggi, his death is being threatened by Steve Feinberg from a company, DynCorp company called Culpeper in Arkansas. Which is funny, because we started on saying DynCorp was the root of the problem, and we said General Kelly was DynCorp, and we said General Kelly was going to put DynCorp people all around Trump. So anyway, so I'll start off with a recap here. This is all about Ukraine Gate, and in order to get the story right, you have to tell the story, the whole story, and nothing but the truth. You have the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Dan Bongino has a book called Spygate and tells part of the story, and it does a pretty good job as far as all the books out there about telling the story of Chalupa. And Chalupa having these 68 investigative journalists that she invites to the Library of Congress to take down Trump. Investigative journalists. Well, these are really graduate students. that are being kind of corralled in Ukraine. They're not all Ukrainian, but most of them speak Russian and Ukrainian and German. And then there's two sisters that are of hers that don't look anything like her whatsoever, that seem to have the same name of Chalupa, that are running this group for Dimitri Alperovich in Kiev. And it seems like this last name of Chalupa is just a cover or a protective privilege, family member privilege, so they don't have to testify against each other. But it looks like Clinton Foundation's bringing these folks in. You can see it's the Open World Foundation that Soros runs and so forth, brings all these people in. And then they choose the best ones to be reporters, dirt diggers, and they bring them in during elections. So my question is, if do you read Ed Klein book, Plot to Destroy Trump? No, I haven't. I've seen pieces and read excerpts, but I haven't read the Ed Klein book. It'd be interesting to see what he says about Ukraine Gate. So if he says something more than I say, put the comments here. The Ed Klein book, anybody wants to send me a book, I'll do the analysis of the book. But again, I want to promote Dan Bongino for the things he reported correctly. And I want to build off of that so people don't have to worry about, well, is George telling me the whole story and whatnot? If I tell you, and I quote you right from documents that Bongino has, it's going to be hard for Bongino to argue with me, right? He's the one who says, Chalupa ran all around Capitol Hill with the guy from Ukraine, who's basically running a Ukrainian version of the Fusion GPS, which is a dirt digger. It's a dig dirt group. Sidney Powell's book, no. But if you want to send me stuff about, go to the index if you have the book, any book you have with Chalupa in it, and then tell me something that I don't know, the Chris Matthews things. Tell me something I don't know about Chalupa. But there's these three sisters. I've been talking to Lee Stranahan about this for over a year and a half. I said, they're all fake. They're all using the same last name, so they don't have to testify against each other. If anybody ever found out how they were, taking down elections. So we argued a little bit about that. No, I don't. I think Bongino's still a guest commentator with Hannity, and no problem. This morning I talked about Doug Schoen and how Doug Schoen actually introduced the commenter on Hannity, actually introduced the Clintons to Victor Pinchuk, which became Hillary's biggest contributor after deals like Uranium One and so forth. I think, I would agree with that. Dan Bongino is sort of, like lean back and have a beer and listen to the news kind of thing, and don't want to do a deep dive. And I am the lean forward. Hey, let's get to the truth. Let's understand this thing. And the reason why deep dive is important here is because if you don't understand that Leschenko, this is the guy with the salad when it's real spicy, you say Leschenko next time. If you don't understand he ran the Fusion GPS group in Kiev, if you don't understand that they had access to top secret information like the travel schedules of the first family through the Nabu crime unit, if you don't understand it was a combination of both of those, and the Clinton Foundation is using these as political operatives, classified information now to take down opponents in all kinds of different congressional campaigns, as well as Trump. If you don't understand those things, you're never going to be able to stop it. And Dan Bongino stops well short of that. And that's why I am bringing it out. The key fact, he mentions Leschenko all over the place. I have no issue with that. What I have an issue with is Lee Stranahan and I saying this was the key to the dossier. This was the key source to the dossier. This is what Dan Bongino called Lee Stranahan a lunatic over. He was saying it wasn't paid for by Browder. It wasn't paid for by Pinchuk. It wasn't, these people weren't funding the dossier. Yes, they were. And that came out in Nellie Orr's testimony. She said, who's your key source? She said, Leschenko. She was also putting the dossier together using foreign intelligence beginning in October of 2015. This is the other problem I have with Dan Bongino. Dan Bongino wants to make the start of Crossfire Hurricane July 30th. He wants to make it when Nellie Orr and Bruce Orr goes and meets with Christopher Steele and another guy from Orbis, who I think is Nix, who's the head of Cambridge Analytica. He wants that to be the beginning of the clock for Crossfire Hurricane. That is incorrect. Even the New York Times said it happened on March 8th or March 9th when Carter Page and George Papadopoulos get put into the campaign along with Manafort and Mike Flynn. I say it agree. I have always said it was at least December 2015, and probably back to when they first started doing the money sweeps. The DNC started doing the money sweeps with Bernie in October of 2015. The testimony has proven me correct. Nellie Orr's testimony says October 2015 plus or minus a week, meaning it could be all the way into September in 2015, right? So that's really super critical information. If you don't realize that she got classified information from Leschenko through the FBI's crime unit, that was the travel schedule of the inner circle of the Trump family, then you're not going to appreciate the fact that it's not just open source information. They're using this as a way of doing deep dives. State Department is rinsing this information through Victoria Nuland, through the Embassy of Ukraine. It's being filtered out through the crime unit and then being sent back. It's being used as a foreign spy operation to take down Donald Trump, as well as a whole bunch of Bernie-crats as well, Bernie candidates in the 2016 election. It was used again in 2018. It's going to be used again in 2020. That's why I'm saying, if you don't listen to the president, and get to the bottom of the story, you're just going to have this thing grow. If you cut a little tiny branch off, it's just going to grow a new branch, and we're going to be right back here all over again. This article says right here, the reason why the Trump-Russia hoax got started was because this woman right here, Andrea Chalupa, said, I think the Russians tried to hack me. This is what convinced DNC officials to be so convinced that it was the Russians, because one person who works with 69 different hackers and supposedly investigative journalists in Kiev that have been already mishandling classified information for almost 8 months until that time, because Andrea Chalupa said it was Russia, that convinced DNC officials, and that's why they went after Trump. Okay? You have to understand that. If you don't understand that, you're not going to get to the bottom of Ukraine Gate. You're not going to get to the bottom of Spygate. So that is really important. Like I say, thank you, Mark. What thread do we pull on when we're investigating Barr? Well, I believe Barr is going to hold the president. The reason why Mueller and Barr left the door open, they closed the door on collusion, but they left the door open on obstruction. Trump can say whatever he wants at the rally, but Barr left the door open. The reason why, if you look at what Trump's chief of staff just said, another deep state plant, forget his name right now, but he said that Barr could still charge Trump with obstruction. They're going to charge him over Mike Flynn. They're going to say, go easy on Flynn, or can you go easy on Flynn? The contemporaneous notes, they're going to go after Flynn. The place you can start with Barr is Iran-Contra, the wrist slap at Iran-Contra. If you want to see what somebody's going to do in the future in a similar situation with Iran-Contra, look and see what they did with Iran-Contra. Wrist slaps for everybody. They took down the people they wanted to take down. If you want Nixon out, call Halper. Halper's good buddies with Barr, good buddies with Mueller. Take down Trump, put our man in, Pence, before the election. That's what they want, is Pence to run in 2020. It's going to happen. Nick Mulvaney just said the door is still open. Mueller would not have left the door open for Barr if he didn't want Barr to walk through the door. I told everyone that they went, the wives of Cabell Standish and the wife of Bill Barr, been in a prayer circle for 30 years, a thumb drive prayer circle. Hey, it's nice that you brought me a thumb drive this morning at the prayer circle. I brought you a thumb drive too. And it's nice to know what we're going to do next at the prayer circle, right? It's privileged communication. You're in a house of worship. St. Joseph's Oratory, right across. No, I'm not talking bad about Donald Trump. I think you have to listen. That's really a requirement. If you want to make judgments, you're going to have to listen. What I said was, put it this way. I said, what pitch is coming? Think of it like baseball. If you don't know what pitch is coming and you think it's a fastball and they throw you a curveball, you're going to strike out. But if you know you're going to get a curveball from Bill Barr, you're going to jack that thing 500 feet out of the stadium, and all the lights are going to pop out as you do your grand salami as you walk around. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the curveball that Bill Barr is going to throw. Trump has to be ready for it, and he has to jack it out of the stadium. That's what's coming. The obstruction curveball is coming. You got to jack it out of the stadium, and you have to learn how to read. That's going to be really critical. So no, sorry, no jokes. You're gone. Bye. If you're go back to Dan Bongino, go back to believing that George Papadopoulos didn't know Mifsud. So why do I attack on that subject? I'm not really attacking. I'm trying to say that if you don't understand the role of George Papadopoulos, he was a diplomat in training. He was an energy diplomat in training. If you don't understand Joseph Mifsud's whole reason for existence is to train energy diplomats. If you don't understand that Joseph Mifsud has been characterized as a professor, he's not. He's been getting huge amounts of money from the European Union to establish diplomatic energy diplomat schools in 203 universities in 43 countries. If you don't understand how pivotal a player he is, if you don't understand how his personal assistant was Mangiante, who Papadopoulos ended up marrying, who was the personal assistant to the European Parliament, right? You're not going to understand that George Papadopoulos and Mangiante are the two star students of Joseph Mifsud. And you're going to believe the story that Dan Bongino tells, which is, hey, even though I was in a 4-person company in London with one person who was the key go-between to Five Eyes and MI6, Arvinder Sambai, and the other person I was in the company with was Joseph Mifsud and also Mangiante and me. Sounds like the dossier team, right? Even though that happened in January, I didn't actually meet Joseph Mifsud until April. And then that led to, that's how I ended up meeting Downer in a bar, chance meeting. I meet the head of Australian intelligence in March. And then I go and pose with a whole bunch of pictures with a Greek foreign minister who is under investigation for shipping Kalashnikovs and illegal ammunition from Pakistani ordnance factory. And I'm posing, getting the CIA coin from him. Oh, I didn't think that would reflect badly on the president. Yeah, it sounds like you did everything you could do to hang up every coat in the auditorium to make Trump look like he was conspiring with the Russians. And by trying to make the person who was a part of the team that was putting together the dossier, and I have nothing against a knock, not non-official cover is what they call it with the CIA. When you're a non-official cover, it means that you pose as an energy person, like Eric Braverman, like Neil Brown, etc. No, I have no problem with that. I just have a problem with you trying to keep the charade going and acting like a hero. You should just come forward and go, hey, actually, I was pretty much doing what I was supposed to do. They said, go over there. They said, leave the Carson campaign, go over there and meet with the Five Eyes people, see what they've got going on in terms of the dossier, see what Mifsud's got going. Mifsud's a big contributor to the Clinton Foundation. We had all these people coming from Link University, where I got to meet all the kids. I got to pick the ones that were the best to go to the United States, and we brought them all back. What's wrong with saying that? And here they all are, the 69 Ukrainian journalists. There may be more. There may be a lot more than that, but at least 68 of them came in. That's funny because there's about 70 that Mike Rogers said got illegal access to classified information. Interesting. So, I think it defeats the purpose of understanding actually what happened in Spygate if you characterize Carter Page or George Papadopoulos as some kind of hero. Again, you got to go back to here's this chart. I'll put a little chart up. Sophisticated graphics coming at you now. There's a little chart. We know Strokes, Peter Strzok, worked the case in 2013, the Russia case in 2013. His key informant was Carter Page. John Carlin worked at that case. The other key person we knew that worked that case with him, 2013 to 2016, Lisa Page, right? So it's not like to believe, right, that here, Carter Page down here. Sorry, everything's backwards, so I have to read everything backwards. This group, the same group that's all asked to testify together, had Carter Page as their key witness for 3 years. Are we going to act like Carter Page when he came down from that investigation in March of 2016? Are we going to act like that wasn't the start of Crossfire Hurricane? Are we going to act like he wasn't wearing a wire for those 3 years with the Pod Omni case? Are we going to act like he wasn't wearing a wire in Trump Tower doing all these Gazprom meetings? It actually goes back to 2004, but let's just pretend it was just the Pod Omni case, 2013. Are we all of a sudden going to act like we don't know each other? You ever seen these two guys together? Have you ever asked them if they know each other? They know each other. These people all knew each other from this case, this Pod Omni case. That is critical to understanding. You have to know that Nellie Ohr's key contact for classified information was Ukraine. That gives you a picture of what happened. We're going to take the same team, the inside team that we were using in New York for the Pod Omni case, for the Russia case. We're going to take it. We're going to slam it onto Trump. We're going to throw it onto Trump. The outside team that we're going to bring in are going to be all the people that we were using up in New York. We're just going to move the whole operation right down to Washington on Carter Page's back. We're not going to need any new FISAs. We're not going to need any new warrants. We have all this whole research team in Kiev that's already been doing all this Gazprom research for the last 10 years. All the hackers have been hacking all the email accounts and text mail accounts. It's actually a pretty good plan. It should have worked. Just bring the whole operation down to Washington. We'll put them up over at American University. We'll have Wolf put a few up in places in Ellicott City. We'll put some other ones up in Laurel. Other people will offer. We'll get some Navy intel people, Democrat Party people, to put them up in different places. This will be fine. Everything's going to be fine. We'll get them all G4S badges. They can go in at different times at night and do different deep dives on different things. Then we'll all meet at American University. We'll have our top ODNI management guy, Kevin Martin McCormick. I saw Harold, the Purple Crayon Martin, just got 9 years. Finally, they sentenced him after almost a year and a half, right? Or no, 2.5 years now. They finally sentenced Harold, the Purple Crayon Martin. He was the guy who was supposedly a hoarder. He's a hoarder. He's in the most sensitive part of Fort Meade. He is in the tailored access unit where they write special access programs. You want to keep something away from the president and everyone else and compartmentalize it so no one knows your program. No one knows Joe Schmidt's program of, the people that are shipping the stuff to Novi Syri for NATO. They have no idea what's in the box, right? Once it gets to Novi Syri, then the guys at Novi Syri, they're just putting it on the plane. Here comes the Pakistani Ordnance Factory ammo. They don't know what it is. They just put it on the plane. It's the Lockheed system. I even interviewed the person who put this all together. It shows up in Russia. Here's Oleg Deripaska has got the team, the Mujahideen team, ready to go. They open the boxes. They don't have any idea how it got there. That's what a tailored access program is. That is what a special access program is. You divide it up so no one knows. The people who send out the ammo, they don't know where the ammo is going. The people who send out the AK-47s, they have no idea where it's going. And you chop it up so that no one knows the whole plan except the people, Joe Schmitz, the people who put the Blackwater people who put the plan together. That guy, Harold the Purple Crayon Martin, the guy who was stealing all the information for two decades. 2 decades. He's the key guy inside the TAO, Tailored Access Unit, same unit that Snowden was in. Guess what? He is just a hoarder. He's just a hoarder. He was taking all those documents, and he was just leaving them out in his shed. We took you there. We took a picture of his shed. We took a picture of his house. He was just hoarding documents. He just left them in the shed. Now, Imran 1 may have come over with Rayo and Jamal to cut the grass. They had to go into the shed to get the lawnmower. So every week he wouldn't, they probably took the trash out with him too. So he was just a hoarder in our most sensitive group, operations group. So don't tell me it can't be done, because we have Harold the Purple, Martin Cran. And guess what? Right about that time, there was a rogue group out there called the Shadow Brokers, right? And they got a whole bunch of the latest and greatest vault tools right when we were in the election, right when we were bringing in all these people from Ukraine, right when they could have used those tools to make Trump look bad, to do deep dives, to get into different people's email, put bugs on their social media and so forth, right when they could put different vault tools, like the vault tool called Umbrage. You could send a Ukrainian hacker, and her name could be Krylova, and she could have graduated, or she could even be Russian, could be a GRU agent on loan. And she could have graduated from ITMO in St. Petersburg. And she could have been staying at a safe house in Ypsilanti, Michigan. And then her job could be a nurse in Spectrum Health, or an EMT person, which I believe she is, who rides the helicopter to go get the organs. When you need an organ, somebody dies, and you're going to fly it over to Rom in Chicago to get a donor, his heart. Yeah. She could have taken that thumb drive, logged into any computer on the Spectrum Health network, logged into Trump Tower, put the bug in there to create a communication between Alpha Bank and Trump Tower with the Umbrage tool. And then Bob's your uncle. You leave it run. And then you get Franklin Foer, Fusion GPS, you have a little meeting over here, one of the dinner lunch clubs in Washington. And here sits Glenn Simpson. You sit down with Franklin Foer and say, hey, Franklin, look at all this communication between Trump Tower through an unused server, a resort server in Trump Tower and Alpha Bank. Franklin Foer doesn't know it's a bunch of DNS lookups that don't even connect and get any data. All Franklin Foer sees is the big spikes. So what does Franklin Foer do? He writes a big article. Trump communicating with the Russians, with a Russian bank. He must be laundering money. Nobody looked. Well, he did. Franklin Foer did say, and there is a little bit of a curious activity with Spectrum Health in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is odd. That's Betsy DeVos's company, Ditsy Betsy, as Trump calls her, this current Secretary of Education. Yeah. It seems like, the DeVos's, the Blackwater DeVos